My friend disappeared for 9 years. When I was at uni, I met this guy called Dave. Initially I just found him interesting and attractive, so I started to talk to him randomly and we started to become friends. I found out that he had a girlfriend, so I just moved on from my crush, and a while later I started a relationship with another guy. Dave and I became very close friends. We were always together. As both our partners were a bit controlling and complained about our weight, we would even lie to them about having something for uni and then go to restaurants to have pizza together. He is straight, but his girlfriend had dumped him and he was feeling really low and desperate. Around this time, I found out that my boyfriend cheated on me multiple times and decided to give him another chance, but was still feeling really hurt. One night, Dave went to my house and, both being in a very fragile state, we ended up having sex. It was awkward and clumsy. He then got a bit awkward with me, so I became a bit distant. Until one day, when he brought it up and we had a great chat and moved on, so we grew closer again, and had a really great friendship without the need to talk about that day again. A few years later, I moved out of the country, although we continued to exchange WhatsApp messages on a regular basis. Every time I would visit my home country, he would be the one friend to make a lot of effort to see me, spend hours talking and going to places together. A real true friend. Then, one of the times I've been to my home country, I had my new boyfriend with me and was quite excited to introduce them to each other. But Dave said he was busy helping his family and we ended up not meeting that time. I continued to message him once I was back, but he stopped replying, and one day I noticed that he changed his number because he stopped receiving the messages. I got worried because the time was passing and I didn't hear from him. I'm quite intense sometimes and I was genuinely worried about him, so I started to search for things using methods that were not entirely legal, so I managed to find some of his friends and they all said the same, that they didn't hear from him for years. I found family members who wouldn't reply to me and I got to talk to his parents, who assured me he was fine, but still didn't give me his new number or anything. This continued for 9 years. I kept dreaming about meeting him on the street and kept having all these different crazy scenarios in my head on what had happened. I did wondered about the night we had sex and if maybe he had joined a church or cult. He could have been trying to clean himself from his past. But it was all theories in my head and I just wanted him to tell me to stop and piss off. If that was the case, I needed to know that he was fine and have some closure if he didn't want me in his life anymore. Until one day, after 9 years, when he called me out of the blue. I couldn't believe it. I asked if he was okay and there was a silence. And then crying. He told me that he had some recent health issues in the last 3 months and that led to him being depressed and he didn't know how to start seeking for help. And that he decided that he needed to speak to me again. It's been 3 days that we stayed on the phone for 3 hours. He told me that he doesn't know exactly why but just cut many people from his life. And the more the time passed, the most difficult it was to get back and talk again. He said that, from all his friends, I was the only one he didn't have a real reason to stop talking to, as in, I didn't do anything. And he said he knew he would go back to me one day and that's why he didn't want to cut me off by telling me. Speaking more, he did admit that the night we had sex was a bit traumatic to him and he felt nervous and ashamed that people would know, not because he thinks being gay is bad, but because people would label him something he is not, and that would bring consequences to his relationship with other people. He said it was a delayed response, because we moved on from it, but suddenly he felt very uncomfortable about it, like PTSD, because it was a moment when we were both very low, so it wasn't a good idea to do something like that. Interestingly, I told this story to someone I met today and he asked me, "Have you forgiven him?" And I guess I didn't even think about having to forgive him for disappearing for 9 years. I did suspect a few times that he knew that I was looking for him and just didn't want to engage, but I just try to think that I don't know what he was going though, so it's hard to judge. I was upset that he wasn't at my wedding or experienced the moment I adopted my son, but I told him that I guess I'm so happy to have my friend back that I think I just want to move on.